Welcome to a new edition of Clavertis Miller's Fine Arts Gallery here in the Poconos. Today I have a special guest with me who's a friend, who's a singer, a writer, a producer. He's a founding member of a group from the 60s and 70s called the Invitations. And they have, if you're familiar with that time period, or if you were back in that time period, they had a great hit called, and correct me if I'm wrong, is they say that the lady is crazy.
Yeah, they say the girls.
They say the girl is crazy. Okay,
Right.
great.
Right.
But they are residents here in the Poconos, and just to get into it a little bit with you, where did you guys come from before moving to the Poconos? Where were you living?
Okay, originally, all of the members that when I joined the group was called the Tip Toppers, and that was like in the early '60s, like 1963, around that time. And by 1964, we had members from North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
One was actually born in Brooklyn, right? Myself, I was from Richmond, Virginia, and the other young man was from Baltimore, Billy Morris. So as time went on, that particular group of invitations, Billy Morris, Bobby Rivers singing bass, Billy Morris singing baritone and second, I'm singing first and second, and we also had a young man before them by the name of Roy Jolly, who was from Augusta. He wasn't, I don't think he was from, I think he was from actually the Atlanta area of Georgia. And he was the lead singer on all of our stuff that we did, say around 64.
Right.
7 or 8 different songs, maybe a bit more for Donna Voice Records.
So you guys, so it started in Brooklyn then?
Yeah, it actually started in Brooklyn because, as I mentioned, they were called the Tip Toppers, and they actually came. They just did a stint in Switzerland, and they came home.
Right.
And then they needed another singer, and they approached me.
So when you guys actually started out, was it talent shows or shows themselves that when you first got on stage?
No, not really. Back in the 60s, the heyday of the 60s, there were clubs, nightclubs just about on every corner in Brooklyn, this certain street called Fulton Street. And if you had a group and you would go in and you would perform, right, just go in and perform a number, like say for instance on a Thursday night or something like that.
Right.
If you were very, very good, the next week that club or that bar would hire you for the whole weekend.
Okay.
So you would do Friday, Saturday, sometime a matinee on Sunday. You know, so that's basically how my group started. I originally came from Richmond, Virginia, and straight out of the military, I spent 2 weeks at home, and I came to New York, and that was in 1962.
Right.
So having never been in an atmosphere like that, even though I was in a singing group in the military, we had a contract with United Artists. So I came as a singer to fulfill that contract. The other 4 fellows that was in the group at that time, named the Champlains, they were getting out sporadically after I did. So I had a whole year out by myself. I danced with a dance team for about a good 6 or 7 months called the Magnificent Three.
So what was there were some groups also in the 70s that you guys sort of were not affiliated with, but you were around who were in that Motown area. Was there any of those guys that you?
We did quite a few shows. One of the shows was called Ebony Affair, and that show was actually taped in Alexandria, Virginia, but it was a syndicated show. So it came on just like Soul Train and some of the other shows like the one that Jerry B did out of New York.
Right.
So we were guests on both of those shows a lot.
Right.
Though it happens that Ebony Affair, the TV show, actually came out of D.C. and there was a few young men. They actually bought a club which we had performed at in Washington D.C. And that was called Mark IV. So we do the TV show, perform at the club. Do the TV show, performed at the club, and a couple of theater gigs. We actually opened in 1964. We opened for the Temptations at the Howard Theater.
Right.
And that was the original group. David was in the group, but so was Paul at that time.
Right.
Paul.
Well, see, what I didn't tell the audience also is that this young man is a super 81-year-old performer who still performs from time to time.
That on my good days.
On his on his good days.
I'll do an electric slide for you or something.
Well, tell us a little bit about your England connection.
Okay, the England connection was horrific. In the beginning, it was horrific because we had a manager, and his initials were VM. I'll just say that.
Okay.
And this young man also was managing a group called the Toys, right? So the Toys was like our sister group, and we were the Invitations. However, we were sent to England to perform for like 3.5 to 4 months. And when we got to England, we found out that we were performing as some kind of drifters, American drifters or something like that. Our manager at that time, VM, had told us, learn a lot of drifter songs because they love drifter songs. Now, we had about maybe 3 or 4 songs with Donna voice at that time. Hallelujah, What's Wrong With Me, Baby, Written on the Wall. You can Google all of those songs, great songs too. And at any rate, the writers and arrangers were Denny Randall and Sandy Linzer, right? So they had the big hit with the Toys called Lover's Concerto. To make a long story short, we get to England and we see that we're performing at this one club. The first night we went, the American Drifters that featured the Invitations. So we kind of like didn't think about it too much. And we did the show, we did the Drifter song that they had prepared us to do. But then we found out our manager left the next day, and we had to go to the office to pick up our passports because he left our passports at the agent's office.
Right.
So we go there, and we find out, amongst other things, that they had actually booked us as some kind of drifters.
So even though it started out, you say, it's a little horrific in the beginning,
right?
As time went on, things sort of changed up a little bit.
It took us about maybe, I would say, three years, and all told, to like really just clean the board and clear it. And we had to hire a barrister every time we went back. And we would go back. We had the young man who was actually our roadie became our manager, right? Okay. So we had our stuff legally set up. And one of the reasons that we did that is because the agency that we was working for at that particular time also had Charlie and Inez Fox, which Charlie and Inez Fox were brother sisters act. They had Mockingbird, right? The word is that they went on to perform one night and their taxes wasn't paid, so they incarcerated them.
Oh.
And then they left the country, and I think they never went back to work there.
That's not a good thing. You have to pay those taxes.
That's right. Yeah. So by us hiring a barrister and moving on from that agency and us trying to book our own gigs down the line, or having our manager, Leo de Klerk, book all our gigs, we kind of got around everything. So we would go back and forth for quite a few years. In 1973, we had come home. And we were actually, every time we came home, we had at least 3 to 4 special clubs that we worked in
Right, right. Okay.
every time we came home.
Mhm.
So at least if you worked just the weekends only, those 3 or 4 clubs would be like there for a month.
Right.
So we would be home for a month. We could go into the studio. We could do background work. We could work on our own songs. And then 4 months later, we're back in England again.
Well, that's the interesting thing about that going back and forth, even overseas England, and the amount of fanfare that you got there,
Yeah.
which a lot of musicians from, especially black musicians
Right.
from this country, they didn't get the comeuppance, so to speak,
Right.
here, but they got it there in England where they were really big hits.
That's right.
But
It's amazing because there were certain artists
mhm.
that we kind of admired. One of the groups we did admire. In fact, we were instrumental in sending them to England after the first time that we was there, and we sent this group called the Velours, and they had a hit record as the Velours, right? And they had stopped singing, and they all gotten jobs. One was an English teacher. One worked on the Whitestone Bridge as a toll taker. There used to be a big department store on 14th Street called Klein's.
Know it well. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So he was, Richie was the head shipping clerk at Klein's. And the other guy, Romy, the lead singer, actually was, that was his job. He just sang. So we sent them over. They right away decided that they were going to go back.
Right.
After doing 3 weeks, they
Right.
went back and they did 3 months. But while they were there, they met an agent from out of Boston who regularly corralled them from underneath the Tempest organization that was bringing over all these acts under phony names. So they turned out to be the Fantastics, right? So they not only turned out to be fantastic, they didn't give up their American citizenship, but they just also gained the European citizenship. So they actually moved.
So they stayed over there.
They stayed over there. Not only did they stay over there, I can remember having a chat with Edwin Starr. And I think he had War out at the time. And they would not let him work out of Motown. In fact, he had his own label.
Right.
And Motown bought that label up.
So now, I mean, you're still working. The invitations are still going.
Right.
Not as often, but now you're
not
working
as often.
with.
But we're the invitations over here, and now we're working to try to get our name, the invitations there out.
Well, and also to let you guys know that he is the last remaining member of the invitation. So we have some history here.
Yeah,
that's going.
I'm the last founding member. I've been the last founding member for quite a few years of the group. We've lost quite a few members along the way from the original members. Who I mentioned before, who was Bobby Rivers on bass, Billy Morris singing second and baritone, Roy Jolly, who was a heck of a lead singer out of Georgia. We lost him, and we replaced him with a young man from North Carolina by the name of Herman Kofi, who was an excellent lead singer also. However, I came home from England one time. We were doing background work, and I got a call from a gentleman that I knew, had some dealings with, called Joel Diamond. And Joel Diamond actually heard that we were back in the country, and he wanted to know what were we doing, because he had an idea for a song that he thought that we could really do that was fantastic. And the song was by Jerry Butler, For Your Precious Love.
Okay, know it well.
So yeah, back in those days, you had to actually contact the company or the artist to get approval to do the song. You don't have to do that anymore.
Right.
You know, so at any rate, he got the approval to do a version of that song. We got the call. and I heard you guys were back in the United States, so what are you doing? So I tell him, and I say, my co-writer, which was O'Neill Johnson, we call him Duke, said, we just recorded a guy from Barbados. He said, from Barbados, what are you doing, Caribbean music? I said, no, we're doing R&B. You got to hear this guy.
Right,
this
right.
guy sounds just like he's from South Carolina somewhere,
Mm.
right? So he says, oh, I said, we recorded a song with him called They Say the Girl's Crazy. He said, let me hear it.
Mm-hmm.
So I sent him the song, and he said, man, this guy be perfect for Jerry Butler's For Your Precious Love. So let him hear the song. He takes it to Polydor Records, but when he takes it to Polydor Records, it's not to promote the group itself. It's to promote his business, which is Silver Blue Records.
And who was the singer that you're talking about?
The young man.
Yeah,
That this is Joel Diamond.
Oh, okay.
He had a label that he had opened up called Silver Blue Records.
Right. Was this in the 60s or the 70s?
Oh no, this was in the 70s.
Okay.
But
okay.
by the time he got to Polydor Records, and they said, listen, we'll give you a distribution deal for your label, which is what he was looking for.
Right.
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 Only if these guys, if you can sign these guys, because obviously he told them there was two different entities.
Right.
Lou was on his own, and the three of us was in fact, Cofield and I was in one group and Duke was in another,
Mm-hmm.
right? So he got to us, explained the situation to us. We said, okay. Billy Morris did not want to fly anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Not Roy Jolly, but Bobby Rivers actually had left and gone to Japan to sing bass for the original Platters, Tony Williams and the Platters. Yes.
Oh, nice.
Herb, I don't know where Herb went, but Bobby Rivers actually went with Tony's wife Helen, and he stayed with, even after Tony passed, he stayed with the Platters for quite a while before going to the Coasters.
Okay. And today you're still writing music yourself.
Still writing, still producing.
Right.
Working with two different production companies now.
You guys have anything coming out that you're going to put out into the public
yeah,
soon?
Pretty soon. In fact, March the 6th, we are in the studio doing background work and laying some lead vocals and saxophone. We're featuring a saxophone on it, the young man that's going to be singing it.
Okay, good. Excellent.
So that particular song, it has an island flavor, and it's really good. It's good. It's a sing-along. You'll recognize it right away.
Can't wait to hear it.
Yeah,
can't wait to hear it.
It's good. It's good.
Good. Well, look, I do appreciate it. I thank you so much for coming by and talking with us and letting the public know about the your group and so forth and what you guys were doing. And I thank you. I thank you, sir, so much.
Yes, sir.
And
I'll be back because there's a million stories in this naked city.
And I want to thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Let's see which way that came. Got all this flickering going on.
That is a really neat thing.
What's that?
That.
Oh, the ring light?
Yeah.
Let's see what we got. 18 minutes. Which wasn't bad. Let's